team since I was 9 years old. He now has that team environment again. It looks very different with McAfee and Reese Davis and Stanford Steve and all those guys, but it still has a team feel to it. Now, does he miss the locker room, the Saturdays, the Saturday nights, the recruiting, all of that? That I'm not sure of, as he wants to get back in it. But I really do think, I don't know if you have that graphic available again. I sincerely, in my heart of hearts, I think that every dollar spent on a Nick Saban being the next head coach at LSU is a dollar straight to the casinos. Yep. I think it's dollar. I think it's money wasted.
That's what we call a generous donation in our world.
Right. But I do think you would have a pretty nice return on your investment if you were to pick Joe Brady.
Yes.
And Dan Lanning I find really interesting as well because, like you said, there's no John Summerall on here, but there is a coach of another major college football program that has 700 plus 700 odds. To me, that's what kind of if I were to say, hey, if somebody says, hey, this is $100, you make a bet somewhere. I think I'll go with 4-1 on Joe Brady, and maybe the second bet would be 7-1 on Dan Lanning.
I think, honestly, looking at the future for LSU would be better off trying to get Dan Lanning. If they do hire Dan Lanning, it'll be a home run hire.
Absolutely.
I have my concerns about Joe Brady because we're starting to see now the Bills' offense isn't doing well.
Right.
I mean, they got demolished by the Miami Dolphins of all teams.
Exactly.
Josh Allen is, I believe he's tied for the most multi-turnover games in the NFL this season.
Right.
And you go back to Joe Brady's LSU days, and who did he have? Joe Burrow.
Yep.
So you can make the argument, hey, this dude is made by great quarterbacks in Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. But at the same time, you could also say he's great at developing these quarterbacks. And I think Joe Brady or Garrett Nussmeier under Joe Brady might have had a little bit more success than we've seen. I mean, he's coming off his worst game this year.
Yeah.
Benched for Michael Van Buren at one point.
That's
now we don't even know who's going to be the quarterback moving forward.
Right.
But no, I really find it interesting. And then Lane Kiffin, I think he's going to steer away from this. At this point, I think it's either Ole Miss or Florida. But Ole Miss playing Florida this week.
That's right.
He is hosting 2 Florida commits.
Interesting.
At the game. I just read about it. He's hosting 2 Florida commits.
Right.
The Florida fans are thinking, he's trying to get a head start here. Now, on the other side, he's like, no, he's trying to flip them.
Yep. And honestly, he's trying to flip them in the most lane way ever.
Yes.
I mean, it's very calculated. It's a very calculated way to do it, and that's what I think. I really do think that this is more of the lane trolling side, more so than it is anything else. But it is interesting because, and you mentioned this a few weeks ago, you wanted College Game Day to be there because of the pomp and circumstance around it.
There's so much around this game.
And it looks like we still might get a lot of pomp and circumstance around Nick Saban because it looks like this might be one of those weird times where the site of game day we know going in is going to be a trash game, and all the talk is going to be around everything around the game because the site of College Game Day is Notre Dame Pitt. We heard from Pat Narduzzi earlier this week.
He's already throwing the white towel.
He's punted this game. You had your overreactions. I don't think it's an overreaction. Notre Dame wins that game by 70. They're already a double-digit, favorite in the matchup.
Oh, yeah.
I think all the talk will be about Lane Kiffin and about Nick Saban and about the job openings. And so this might be just like hey, who cares about the actual game on College Game Day? Let's talk about all the juice around it and what we will see in 2026.
It's a 3-hour show, right? College Game Day is a 3-hour show?
Yes. Either 3 or...
It runs, I think, from 9 to 12 Eastern.
Right.
I bet you at least 2 hours of it is talking about SEC games.
Oh, yeah.
Because I honestly am shocked that they're at this game.
Right.
And hindsight's always 20/20, especially after what Pat Narduzzi said this week.
Right.
But, I mean, for them to go to this game and then Narduzzi say, I don't even care if we lose, over a Texas-Georgia matchup, which I think could be a college football playoff matchup here in a few weeks, or an Oklahoma-Alabama matchup with Oklahoma trying to keep its season alive.
Yep.
I mean, everyone wants to hate on, game day only goes to the SEC, but, I mean, this is why you have to go to the SEC because you got rivalries that are supposed rivalries when you don't even care if you lose. How is that a rivalry?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm still mad over that. I'm not the mad dog, but like, what are we doing?
It's hilarious because to me it's like, hey, you understand that this game Literally, it feels like they're throwing a bone to the conference. And it feels like Pat Narduzzi is just like, screw your bone. I hate it. And then it doesn't matter to me because it's not an ACC game. We'll find out, though. Yeah. We'll definitely find out. But it's interesting.
Let's get back to the LSU game here real quick before we get to our guests for today. Do you think, I mean, this is the quote-unquote interim bowl, interim head coach bowl.
Right.
Between LSU and Arkansas. I think LSU's sitting at 5-4 right now.
Right.
I mean, there's a small chance that they could run the table and win out and finish 8-4, but I feel like you have to win here this weekend.
No, we have to. Absolutely have to. And I do think this is an interesting situation for Arkansas because I think they've tried and they've kind of exhausted all their options to be able to get this team off on the right note. And I think Bobby Petrino came in with a lot of fire, a lot of enthusiasm. They just don't have enough. I think LSU is just a better. They're going to walk off the bus with a better team, a better football team, more talent, and I expect them to win this football game. So it'll be interesting.
Well,
sure.
they got to figure out the quarterback though.
I do have to figure out the quarterback, Van Buren or Nussmeier. You know who will know? Our next guest.
Right after the break.
Chesa Boucher joins us here on Southeast Sports Plus. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus. It is a Thursday, gearing up for another big week in college football. Our next guest is Chesa Boucher, who joins us from Louisiana. There has been nothing short of a lot of storylines coming out of that area. I feel like every single time we've had you on, there's been something new to talk about. This past week, there's been some noise with Brian Kelly. We'll jump into that. But first of all, another game here with Frank Wilson in as the interim head coach for this LSU football team. Obviously, last week against Alabama, it was a better team. Bama seemed to be in control. The game really did not, as far as the score overall, if you look at it overall, you don't think it's a blowout really either way. But it seemed like Bama was in control. What did you make of his first game there and then what they were able to do at quarterback with both Van Buren and Nussmeier getting action?
Yeah, I will tell you, even in pre-games, there was a different energy, a different vibe from this team, which was expected, especially because Frank Wilson is one of those guys that he has a hand in all of these recruits. So all of these guys know him on a personal level. He's from Louisiana. He started as a high school coach in New Orleans, and he just brings that grit and that fire and that determination. I think that this team has maybe been missing the past few years. And even when they were getting ready to run out of the tunnel, they did kind of their old school little swag, sway, kind of just it was different. I even tweeted out before kickoff. I was like, regardless of the outcome in this game, there's a different energy with this team that they had been missing all season long. So I love to see that. Frank Wilson, if you've heard any of his post-game comments or even when they named him the interim coach, he talks about how he loves Louisiana. It's different. Not everybody fits in here. I get it. And just one of those of like, you want to run through a brick wall because you know he's who he is, and he's genuine and he's fiery and he's passionate, and so he just exudes that. So I was excited to see the product on the field. I was impressed with the defense holding Alabama to just 20 points, their second lowest total of the season. The only other lowest total was their 17-point loss to Florida State. So I thought the defense held you in this ball game yet again. We've said this aside from maybe 2 games all season, so I thought that was promising. It sucked, to be completely honest, of just if your offense could just get into the end zone and not settle for field goals, you have a chance. And it was just like, man, they couldn't do it. I did like the spark off the bench with Michael Van Buren. Gave this a little bit of life. He went and put together a drive, but again, they stalled out in the red zone, which they have done basically all season long aside from the Clemson game. And so I thought he brings another dimension to this offense because he can extend plays with his legs, something that Nuss has a little bit of ability to do that. Nothing like Michael Van Buren. So I just thought that maybe they should have brought him in at halftime, especially because of the way things had gone offensively in the first half. But I like that Frank Wilson wasn't scared to say, hey, my guy, you're not getting it done. We're going to try something different. So I respected that. He did say earlier in the week that they're going to burn Michael Van Buren's red shirt, and both quarterbacks are going to play this weekend. I'm interested to see how they divvy that up. I don't really like the 2 quarterback system. I feel like if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. So yeah, I hate it for Garrett Nussmeier with all the promise and with all of the hype surrounding this team, and especially we've talked about it from Jaden Daniels year 1 to year 2, and then Joe Burrow year 1 to year 2, and you really expected a big jump from Garrett this year, and it just hasn't happened. Granted, he has an offensive line that is not great and just basically pieced together, so I understand it. You have no run game to really help you out, so this offense is limited, but I do think Michael Van Buren brings a little different dimension, and it puts a little bit more pressure on the defense. So I think maybe that's the way to go, especially just because of the struggles, and especially the struggles in the red zone.
Absolutely. What's the overall energy been like with this program? Because I feel like, and you mentioned it, holding Alabama to 20 points, you got a spark from your backup quarterback. Going into this week against Arkansas, I was just talking with Patrick about this a moment ago. I think that LSU, just pound for pound, the players that are walking off the bus for LSU are better than the players walking off the bus for Arkansas, just period. But what's the overall sense of what this team will try to do from a mentality standpoint going into the end of the year? Bowl games kind of seem good for some programs, not good for this program.
It's funny that you said that. My sports director, Brian Holland, he was like, Chessa, you might be able to go home and cover the Independence Bowl. And I was just like, not really one of my favorite bowls. I will say growing up, I like to go to it, but not so much as covering it for the media. I know people are going to hate me yet again for not saying the best things about the Independence Bowl, but it's Shreveport is South Louisiana is better. I'm just saying. I'm being real. So no, but the energy in the building is a lot different. I think these guys are really playing for pride now, and I know that's kind of cliche of saying they're just playing for pride. No, I think because of how the season has gone, the situation they've been in, having to play for a new interim head coach, and also Arkansas has always played spoiler to LSU. Since I was growing up, I've seen this time and time again. There's nothing truly to spoil this season, but there's nothing that Arkansas would love more than to come in and get a win in Death Valley over LSU, especially with an interim head coach. It gives me a lot of pause because, like y'all said, Petrino has really put on a clinic offensively. That's something that LSU has not been able to do all season long, is put up a lot of points. So you're facing another solid offense. But I will say last year when they played against Taylor Green, he was coming off of an ankle injury, but they did a really good job of containing him. So I'm interested to see how Blake Baker kind of schemes it up this week of what's going to happen. And also I thought it was a good sign to see Whit Weeks, back at practice. Will he go Saturday? I'm not sure. They haven't, really told us what that's going to look like. But for him to be practicing, that's a step forward in the right direction. So, again, I'm from North Louisiana. I love South Louisiana. That's why I live here. I've been here for over 10 years. Arkansas just gets on my nerves. And so if LSU could put up some points and kind of silence them and get another win in SEC play, that'd make me feel a lot better, because I don't see them doing that in, a couple weeks in Norman.
Jessa, I'm going to be honest. I think the folks in Arkansas are already on to basketball. So they're going to be silent as is. I have to do our due diligence here with the coaching search. We just talked about Nick Saban being the betting favorite. I think that's Vegas just trying to get some money here. But a name that was the third highest odds was Joe Brady with the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, Brady was with LSU and helped develop Joe Burrow. Could you see LSU trying to go for a guy that can develop quarterbacks, seeing how the quarterback has played out this year?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I will say that that's kind of been the chatter. Anytime there's a coaching search, everybody always elects back to Joe Brady. He's never had coaching experience. He's flat out said, I don't want to coach in college. So I don't know if maybe that changes, because the Bills have kind of fluctuated this season offensively with him being the play caller. Again, I'm not one of those proponents of, yeah, let's go get a guy because he's younger and I like the more experienced guys, which obviously that burned us with Brian Kelly. So I'd rather get somebody who's a coordinator who's been successful with a D1 program that's either in the SEC or maybe a smaller school, but still kind of knows what to look for. I don't really like the thought of, hey, because you helped that 2019 national championship team, you were here for 1 year and now we're going to give you the keys to this program. It gives me a lot of pause just because you're not proven. And I feel like maybe a coordinator with more experience would fit the job better, because it's not your typical job. It comes with a lot. Being the LSU head coach, there is a target on your back, and whatever you do is going to be out there for everybody, and everybody's going to talk about it on and off the field. And I just feel like somebody who's younger maybe isn't prepared for the kind of heat that comes with that.
Absolutely. You invoked the name of Brian Kelly, and I have to ask this question about him, because typically, and what I've been talking about this with Patrick for the last couple of days, is typically whenever a coach gets fired and the buyout situation happens, what ends up happening is that the buyout number gets everybody's attention, and then it just falls off everybody's mind because nobody thinks about it. Everybody's like, okay, well, the school will pay up and he'll get his checks and, he'll be fine. Now this is being played out in a really public and kind of ugly way, where the reports came out that Brian Kelly rejected 2 offers. By the way, I do not blame him at all for that. But then now there's like a lawsuit going back and forth. 2 things. What do you make of just this publicly playing out as much as it has? And how much do you think this might affect the public perception for the next guy that's going to be the coach, given how ugly, quote unquote, this has been in the public eye?
Well, I think it's definitely going to have a black cloud over this program because of how it's been handled, because of the governor going on and acting a donkey and saying all the things he had to say. And then you're basically saying, hey, we don't want to pay you as much as we paid the last guy, but I want you to come in and win national championships. But if you don't, you will be out in 3 years, regardless of that. So to me, it's a terrible look. I don't think the way it's been handled has been mishandled from start to finish, and it's basically made a mockery of this program. And I hate that, because again, I went to LSU I got my master's from LSU, and I covered this team. And so it's just crazy to me that I thought things got wild during the Ed Ogeron.
Yeah. His
final season being the lame duck coach and all the craziness off the field that came with it. And I thought, well, that's going to be the craziest thing I ever covered. And then they were like, no, hold my beer, Brian Kelly out the door, this is what we're doing. So it's just I don't know. And to be honest, I feel like somebody who would be able to handle something like this would be Lane Kiffin, just because of he's been through kind of it all, from the Tennessee stuff to USC and being a head coach in the NFL, and then basically dealing with an owner who blasts you to the media. So I feel like if anybody could handle it and the antics that have kind of played out in public, I think Lane Kiffin would be the guy. Do I think he leaves Oxford? Not really. Like, if Lane Kiffin can look in the mirror and say, hey, we can win a natty here, then maybe. But yeah, it just blows me away to see the back and forth. And I understand where Brian Kelly's coming from. He's like, hey, give me my money. But man, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So there's got to be some give and take, but I don't feel like that man is going to give anything. He wants to take it all.
Yeah, he does, and I don't blame him. I'm if you're going to owe me, half of $100 million, you're going to pay me every dime of that, $54 million. Of course, there's a few games left here on this schedule for this LSU football team, and I think a very winnable game coming up this week, and then Western Kentucky, and then the game against Oklahoma. We got a chance to hear from Frank Wilson on the matchup against the Hogs.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great question, because we're not out on anything. Again, I think if you look at body of work and you isolate it, that's good. That was good. We missed that. We got to be able to get that. And they're both imperfect in that sense. They both brought something to the table that helped this team to go up and down the field. They both have things that they need to continue to work on as well. And so I don't think it's just a clear separation where one is beyond the other. That we'll need both of them, and I think and I know we'll use both of them in this game.
So for this LSU offense in both these quarterbacks that are coming into this matchup, which one do you think gives the Tigers the biggest spark this week?
I think the spark would be Michael Van Buren. I will say we talked to players on Tuesday night. They had nothing but love for Garrett Nussmeier, and I think you have to admire what Nuss has been through. He's waited his turn. He stayed here through a Heisman campaign, could have easily transferred out, and he was like, no, this is where I want to be. So I respect him in that regard. What I had heard leading into the season is that maybe he had overworked himself, and so he wasn't healthy from jump, aside from the rib or the oblique injury, and then also dealing with the knee stuff. So I think it's been a culmination of everything. I think Michael Van Buren, again, just brings a different dynamic to this offense, and I don't feel like he's really had a true shake at showing what he can do and, taking the first team reps. I know that they're splitting the reps this week, but I think Michael Van Buren would be a better way to go, just in the sense of he's healthy. He did start 8 games at Mississippi State as a true freshman. And if you're going to burn your red shirt, I feel like he should get a opportunity to actually display what he has. Don't just use him for a drive here or there. Like, say, hey, this is your game. Show us what you got, especially if you want to see if he's your guy for next season.
Absolutely. Let's flip over to women's basketball. We got a chance to talk to you last week, and you gave some really good insight.
Oh, you're getting excited.
I love this. We got Dancing Chessa. Okay, so we got a chance to talk to you about not only this program, but what Kim Mulkey has done. Now, this year, through 4 games, the lowest scoring margin so far is 108 points, and that was in the season opener. And people will poke holes at the schedule so far, but I say 115 and 117, and this is still very, very, very impressive. What do you make of the ladies through the first 4 games of the season?
I went and covered the game last night, and I was extremely impressed with them. They're so talented and deep and young, and I was really impressed. You have to look back. You only have 2 starters from last year's Elite 8 team, and that's insane to think about. Of course, Flage, you have Michaela Williams, but they've gotten the right group of girls who have already gelled and seem to be clicking. And it's very rare, especially this early on in the season, to see a team who is basically brand new to each other with only 2 starters from a year ago, 8 new faces. The #1 freshman recruiting class in the country comes in, and Kim's known not to play freshmen. She's already starting a true freshman in Zakiya Johnson, and these girls know how to ball. Now, I will say defensively, they've got some work to do, but again, that's just kind of learning the system and learning the team and what they expect out of you. They were so impressive last night. They shot over 52% from 3-point range. Malaysia Fulwiley went off and was absolutely fire. I will tell you, I only covered her for a few games when they played against South Carolina. I thought of her as mainly just a slasher on the inside. This girl was out here shooting Steph Curry threes, and I was like, oh, you got range like that? I did not know. I was unaware, but I am fully aware now.
I owe you an apology. I wasn't familiar with your game.
Exactly. And for Kim Mulkey, Kim Mulkey's not normally one to be like, yeah, you can shoot from down there. She was letting it rip with no reservation. Wow. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm very impressed with this team. Like you said, it's a non-conference slate. It's not great, but I think it's a great way to see kind of what your team can build off of. Facing a team maybe that's not an SEC caliber team, but you learn each other, you grow, and you get better. And that's what Kim Mulkey has done during her time here at LSU. And I think this team's going to be scary.
Absolutely. Really interesting game coming up is a very short trip over to Tulane next. There's been a lot of chatter about maybe the Tulane football coach coming in town. And I know the women's basketball team for Tulane, this is kind of their, I hate the parallel, but it's kind of their Super Bowl. It's the biggest game for them because they all obviously, I think in the back of their minds, obviously probably wanted to be at LSU. How do you think that they handle this road trip as they go over to Tulane?
I think they'll get it done. I will tell you, so against Charlotte last night, I don't know if y'all saw all of the social media chatter that was on there. There was a TikTok that one of the starting point guards and a post player talked about how LSU hadn't played any real competition. One thing you don't want to do with the Kim Mulkey team is give them any bulletin material, and they came out on fire. So I feel like LSU feels a little disrespected of like, this team thought that we have something to prove here on out. So to me, I feel like LSU is going to go in and handle business. I think they played Tulane last year. I don't know if it was on the road or at home. It wasn't a super competitive game, but I'm telling you, Kim Mulkey is going to definitely have this team motivated here on out if it wasn't already on display last night, because she doesn't take too well to stuff like that. And so to me, there were like I think 5 technical fouls, 3 on LSU, and like it got chippy. It was loud. The place felt like it was an SEC game, which is rare, especially in non-conference slate. So this team is super talented. This is the deepest team Kim's ever had and the most talented team she's ever had.
Absolutely. Well balanced as well. We got a chance to hear from the head coach about her tale.
I might be starting the wrong people, huh? Ron, I've been doing this almost 40 years. I can't even think about if I've ever had balance like that. I probably have never confidently substituted like this, even in non-conference. And what has dictated that is what goes on in practice every day. And you show me in practice, because I think our practices are extremely tough. I think they're fighting for playing time. And I tell them, don't worry about who's starting. Make me play you. Well, they're all making me play them. Even Meg, she fouled out. I told her she broke Grace's record. She fouled out in less time than Grace did this year.
So it's really interesting because she's learning her team as this team kind of picks up games, picks up wins, and it feels to me like at this point the scoreboard is almost secondary to what she's finding out in the locker room about her squad. Is this the way that she's always been, in your opinion, or is this just the way you have to coach in 2025 with a few new pieces but trying to find out how they work out in games?
That's a good question. I would say I think Kim is one of the coaches who she knows the girls that she's getting, but not everybody necessarily fits into the system that she runs. Kim Mulkey is we're going to rebound and we are going to defend. Those two are the components that's what a Kim Mulkey team is built around. What I love about this team is that they're all so unselfish and they all play defense really well. Now, like I said earlier in the show, there's some learning curves of knowing, if we're playing this man-to-man defense, we need to do this differently and this differently. But I think it's one of those products of, again, 8 new faces on this team, learning how to really play together. But I think offensively, they're so unselfish, which makes them dangerous because you don't know who's going to go off. Like Michaela Williams had a big night. Malaysia Fulwiley had 22 points. It was a team high last night, but there are so many different offensive weapons. Again, Kim Mulkey is all defense and rebounding, so she has guards who know how to defend the ball. When we're talking about stat sheets, she's looking at the turnovers and the steals, because those are the 2 things that she's most interested in. You better take care of the basketball and you better be stealing it. And so it was a lot of fun last night. I think Charlotte didn't score in the second quarter except from the free throw line. That's how well they defended. Kim loves stuff like that. That's what she is made of. So to me, it was exciting to see that. Yeah, offensively, they can score from anywhere, but on the defensive end of the court, they really showed out.
Absolutely. While the football program might be giving you headaches, I'm glad the basketball program is giving you reasons to smile and dance and have some fun. Chessa, thank you so much for your time and all your insight today.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Chessa Boucher joining us from from Louisiana, from Baton Rouge. And I'll tell you what, it's just a weird juxtaposition. We talk about hype for some teams and what teams have to balance as far as athletics go. I don't know if we've seen more that are on this side than Arkansas and LSU. A lot of hype for their basketball programs and down in the dumps about football.
I mean, it's November 13th. Usually people in Baton Rouge aren't thinking about basketball right now, but I mean, that's just the way it is with how the football teams played this year.
Yep.
I mean, good chance for them to get a good win over Arkansas.
That's right.
An Arkansas team that plays everyone close. They honestly might be the best 2-7 team of all time.
No question. No question. That is saying a lot going into this football season. Coming up next, we will stay on the hardwood. A big game for Alabama. They got a huge one in Madison Square Garden. They got a big one again tonight. We have that and more next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, we have a great weekend of college football on hand, but also a great few days of college basketball. This has been a really interesting start to the season. We've already seen some high-quality matchups, seen Texas play Duke. We've also seen Kentucky and Louisville, and coming up tonight, Alabama and Purdue take the court. Purdue started the season as the #1 team in the country, and depending on which poll you look at, they're still the #1 team in the country as well. It's them and it's Houston 1-2 in both the AP and the coaches poll. This is a really interesting matchup, I think, for Alabama because they have a really tough schedule, but also you get this game at home in Coleman Coliseum, which I think is an extra boost for them. I know they've played some neutral site games, but I like this game on a home court right before you get to the real teeth of the non-conference play.
We talked last week leading into the St. John's game about, hey, and I think we talked about this with Scott Griffin. You have this 4-game stretch here where you're playing nothing but top 25 teams.
Right.
I think they went into Madison Square Garden and beat St. John's, and I thought that was one of the most impressive wins I'd seen in a long time. You host Purdue tonight, but, I mean, Purdue played Oakland pretty close, so I think that's what dropped them out of the #1 spot.
Right.
But then you face the #1 team in Houston coming up, and then also you take on Gonzaga to round out your little 4-game stretch there of just playing nothing but top 25 teams. I think this is the highest ranked game in Coleman ever.
Yes, highest ever.
Yes,
right.
yes, highest ever, which is obviously a major.
Yes.
It just goes to show what Nate Oates has been able to do at the helm of this program since coming over from Buffalo. But there's been one guy that's been leading the charge right now, and it's LeBaron Filan.
Yep.
I mean, he's just been an absolute dog for them so far.
Absolutely. He's from the Mobile, Alabama area right here where we are broadcasting this program. Went to Baker High School, then went for a little while to Missouri to an academy there. Signed with Kansas initially, but then ended up coming to Alabama. And then I think one of the biggest things that he did was he put his name into the NBA draft and essentially said that he was going to stay, but then ended up pulling his name out of the draft. And I think with that, Nate Oates was able to challenge him, say, hey, if you want to get to the next level and be a contributor at the next level and not just, be at the end of the bench and be guy number 13, 14, 15, then you need to work on these parts of your game. Some of it on the field, on the court, some of it off the court from a leadership standpoint. And I think he's had to have loved everything that he's seen so far from LeBaron Filan, and it's looking like his play right now through a couple of games is matching the hype that he got at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people, when they see, this guy entered his name into the NBA draft, they think, well, thank you for your service, and then just goodbye. That's not always the case.
Right.
A lot of these guys, especially the young guys, I know Tahad Pettiford just did this this past offseason as well.
Right.
These guys enter their name into the draft. They do the workouts. They see what they need to work on.
Yes.
And then they almost always come back because as long as you don't sign with an agent, you're good.
Yeah.
You can come back. So these guys, they do workouts. They talk to these scouts. Hey, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to work on. And then they go back. They work on those things. And clearly, whatever the scouts told LeBaron to work on, it's been working so far. I know the first game wasn't really against anybody, but for him to come out and be able to, I believe he dropped, 25 on a great St. John's team that just had, they were the number 2 seed in the tournament last year.
Yep.
I mean, just shocking.
Yeah, and if you go back and watch those highlights, because I can give you the 3-point numbers. The 3-point numbers aren't the thing. It's where he was shooting those threes from. You could tell that he came in. He was thinking of this game. This is a professional basketball game because he knows St. John's was going to be one of those teams that they'll have a lot of guys that are going into the NBA. He wanted to go to the NBA. He was chucking them from deep. So he had a career high 22 in the season opener. Added that to a new career high at 25. So there you see his averages through the first 2 games of the season. They're already 1-0 at home. 5 assists, 3 rebounds per game. Gets to the free throw line there as well. But this is an Alabama team that Nate Oates really does a lot with like the analytics, and he wants his team to space and to look like an NBA team. And I think that he's brought a different mentality, and because of that, he trusts his team to be able to handle a really hard non-conference slate, and that's the reason why he scheduled the way he did.
Right, and I think coming into the season, everyone was like, all right, Alabama just lost a lot of players. And they lost a lot of offensive production from the year before.
Right.
How are they going to be able to come back and just, be able to run it back? And honestly, you could make the argument they look even better this year. It's been 2 games.
No doubt.
It's been 2 games, but that game against St. John's really showed me something. Now they have to work on the defense a little bit because, I mean, you want to talk about a barn burner.
Yeah.
that was a barn burner up in MSG, but eclipsing triple digits, that's not easy.
No.
I mean, honestly, that's not easy even against cupcakes.
Right.
It's hard to do.
Yes.
And especially where they were at, Madison Square Garden, against a Rick Pitino coach team, arguably one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows you, I don't think they're going to be scared
of
this game.
Absolutely not.
And
absolutely not.
From what I remember, these Bama-Purdue games are track meets.
Yes. I mean, it is up and down the court, and we got a chance to hear from Bama's head coach Nate Oates on hosting this Purdue Boilermaker team.
Monday was pretty good. I honestly didn't think Tuesday was very good. Like we've got to now. Part of it is we got some guys banged up, and we're trying to make sure that they're not getting any more banged up, and be as healthy as we can for the games. But because you shorten practice and go lighter doesn't mean it's a off day or a lighter mentally day. So just because we're taking it lighter physically on them doesn't mean. So we've got to get better in that. We got to get better leadership. But I thought today they bounced back and they had a really good practice, super locked in. Everybody's on point, know what we want to do in the scouting report. Now knowing what we want to do and actually be able to execute it against one of the best teams in the country. And they are the best execution team. I mean, they've got gazillion sets and 6 different counters to everything they do. So, there's no way you can have every play that they run down. That it's impossible. But I think our guys were locked into the concepts that we've got to have done, and I thought they were really good today. We just, moving forward, we got to have 3 great days going into these really big games.
This line opened up Alabama 1.5-point favorite. It is now at 3, so there's money coming in on Alabama. However, there's somebody who's a big factor for Purdue and Braden Smith, the National Player of the Year candidate. Yeah. This is a really interesting matchup here, and I think we talked about LeBaron Philon. This is a real chance for Smith to kind of put his name, he's obviously in the limelight, but to put his name in the upper echelon in the early stages of his college basketball season.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Purdue team a couple of years ago after the national championship that they lost to UConn, it was like, okay, how are we going to replace Zach Edey, easily one of the best basketball players or one of the best college basketball players? And then you've got Braden Smith that came in last year. Yeah, Purdue didn't have as great of a year last year as they did before, but I mean, it's hard when you don't have a 7-foot guy in the paint anymore that you could just give the ball to a billion times a game and he'll just get you free buckets. Now, you look at it on I think I said this yesterday. What gets you wins in March Madness? Great coaching. Matt Painter's a great coach.
That's right. Yep.
And then great guard play.
Yep.
And Braden Smith you could make the case for him being one of the greatest guards in the game right now.
Yeah, exactly. And he's kind of an extension of Coach Painter on the floor, and they'll need that tonight. They'll need LeBaron Philon tonight. Really interesting matchup, really cool matchup here midweek, right before we get a bunch of good football games at the end of the week. So Alabama and Purdue squaring off there in Coleman Coliseum. Coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus, go back to our top 5, another one of our favorite franchises. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 1 here on a Thursday. This hour has flown by. Absolutely. Lots of great topics so far. We want to close out hour number 1 with another rendition of Top 5 here.
We haven't done Top 5 in a while.
Yeah,
It's been a minute. We've just had so much to talk about. But I was thinking of coming in today talking about, hey, what are the best college football games all year? But I was like, no. We still have so many good games that are upcoming and which could have potential college football playoff implications, especially this weekend.
Right.
So then it got me thinking, who would you want to build your franchise around? Quarterbacks you would want to build your franchises around. And I'll go ahead and start us off here. Number 1, Ty Simpson.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking of a quarterback to build a franchise around, I want a guy that's going to be able to take care of the football and not turn it over.
Yes.
And what has Ty Simpson done best? Taking care of the football and not turning it over. I mean, he is arguably one of the he doesn't have the greatest touchdown to interception ratio in FBS. That goes to the UConn quarterback. I cannot remember his name, but I think he's 24-0.
Right. Yes.
Which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ty Simpson, only one interception, and honestly, it was like an arm punt against Vandy.
Yeah. Right.
Second would be Dante Moore, especially since I feel like coming into this year, the question was how is Oregon going to replace Dylan Gabriel? And then Dante Moore just came in, and it feels like he just picked up almost where Gabriel left off. I think he's going to project to the next level well, and he's a guy that I would build my franchise around. Another guy is Marcel Reed.
Yep.
I think Marcel Reed is this year's Jackson Dart.
Ooh, okay.
He takes care of the football for the most part.
Yeah.
But he can also get off and just run.
Right.
Like he can escape and run with it. And honestly, one of Jackson Dart's greatest traits is he's not scared of anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
And he'll just go after. He'll just run through all of the defenses, just like his running back Cam Scattaboo. Fernando Mendoza's at number 4 because I mean you saw what happened this past weekend.
Yeah.
That was orchestrated. That was absolute cinema. And then number 5, Joey Aguilar, because honestly, he reminds me of old Russell Wilson, who will just chuck the deep ball.
I see the comp.
Maybe even Jameis Winston before he started to decline.
Exactly.
Which, actually, I more so see Jameis Winston because if he does play at the next level, he'll throw 50 touchdowns, but he'll also throw 50 picks.
Throw 50 picks there as well.
50-50.
That's exactly right. All right, so I basically have a lot of the same names as you in a little different order. Fernando Mendoza, he really lit it up last week against Penn State. That throw there at the end of the game, and then his interview at the end of the game. And as he was talking about leading this football team, I was just blown away just how impressive he was. And he's actually a lot bigger than I remembered him. I mean, he's 6'5", 220 pounds. He reminds me a lot of like a Peyton Manning as far as stature goes, maybe even like a Phillip Rivers. Just a really big guy, has accuracy, has a nice arm, and obviously leading an undefeated team. Next up, I'll go with Josh Hoover. There was a lot of talk about Garrett Nussmeier last year, the only 4,000-yard passer. But Josh Hoover last year threw for 3,949 yards. He was 51 yards away from being in that 4,000 club, but he did not get there. So I have Josh
Saw him
Hoover
in
there.
person this year. He looked pretty good up in Morgantown.
Yep. He threw for 2,200 yards a couple of years ago, 3,900 yards last year. He's already at 2,600 yards. He's going to get to 27 this weekend. He'll be at 27 and with the first pass of the next weekend as well. So I like Josh Hoover. I'm with you on Joey Aguilar. He will light it up. He will also throw it in harm's way a little bit. And then the complete opposite side of that, Ty Simpson, who will take care of the football. The reason I have Simpson a little bit lower is I don't necessarily I like his maturity. I want a little bit more ability to run the football. And that's if I'm just splitting hairs here. And then John Mateer, who would be higher on my list, but the hand injury, you just don't know how that will play out for him moving
next
forward.
year would be a good year for John Mateer.
Right.
I think if he were to enter the draft next year, it would probably be a little bit better, get an extra year to develop. I think he does still have one more year of eligibility, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And there's a pretty good track record of quarterbacks that played at Oklahoma that have gone to the NFL and gone on
get
to
him
do
one more
really
year
well.
under Ben Arbuckle. I mean, Arbuckle's been with him for pretty much his whole career, but I mean, it's going to take him a year to just get used to the talent in the SEC.
Exactly, and heal up that hand and everything else. So we'll see how it all shakes out coming up a little bit later on. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 2.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
Southeast Sports Plus continues with big news from the College Football Playoff Committee. The chairman of the committee is officially stepping down, not only on his role with the committee, but also in his role with Baylor University. Is Mac Rhodes stepping away for personal reasons. What this means for the team moving forward for Baylor, but also the team as it relates to the committee overall, how this shakes things up. We'll dive into that here on Southeast Sports Plus. Welcome in. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. And Patrick, this was some news that kind of took us all by surprise early on. You know, Baylor is a program, one of the kind of proud programs there, bell cow representatives ever since Texas and Oklahoma left the conference, and their AD was a prime fixture of the College Football Playoff Committee. I know this is for personal reasons, but what do you feel like this affects not only the committee but for the Baylor Bears moving forward?
Well, we're 21 days away from the selection show.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is a huge blow for the committee because now they have to go into scramble mode. We've already heard some potential replacements, one out of the Big 12, one actually out of the SEC, and Arkansas Athletic Director Hunter Yurachek. I mean, it is kind of surprising to see Yurachek after his comments on the whole NIL surrounding Arkansas and everything. He's got if he were to be selected, he would have to deal with finding a new coach.
Yeah.
Being the chair of the committee. I mean, it's just that's a lot of responsibilities.
Literally at 3:01, this was 90 seconds ago, the College Football Committee has officially released, it's a part of their College Football Playoff, the official release here is that Arkansas AD Hunter Yurachek named chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, and Harlan will return to the selection committee. That is Mark Harlan, who is the AD at Utah. And so he'll come back. So and you mentioned as far as being able to get that representative from the Big 12 on, that will be Harlan's role. But literally as soon as you said it, the email popped across the bottom of my thing, and it said Hunter Yurachek named the chair of the committee.
Man, that is shocking to me because this is kind of out of protocol because usually. And I was listening to ESPN's Heather Dinich talk about it this morning, and she said usually the protocol is if a Big 12 member were to step down, he'd be replaced by another Big 12 member.
Yeah.
And so that's why Utah's Harlan, their athletic director, was nominated for the role. And then it also came out just honestly, it was probably 20 minutes after Harlan was nominated. Yurachek also got nominated. So this is going to be interesting.
Very.
Especially since we saw what happened with the tournament last year with March Madness.
Yes.
And, a lot of people were unhappy. And with SEC teams teetering on the edge, I feel like some people may not be happy. And honestly, I think the winner of this is probably Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe even Vanderbilt if Texas and Oklahoma both fail.
Right. To be able to get into the college football playoff. I think a lot of people outside of the SEC will see this as kind of like the canary in the coal mine situation, where it's a warning sign that, the SEC is about to have their way in this college football playoff bracket, and no matter what else happens elsewhere, the SEC will now get a third, fourth, 15th, whatever the case is. Now, We will say, though, the conferences are still represented the same, and it's not like the chair has any more powerful of a voice than any others. I mean, these things are still mutual agreements here, but I can definitely hear a lot of belly aching around the country about this and about this decision if the SEC gets extra members in.
Yeah, and I mean, I would be a little bit nervous, especially if I was the Big 12, because the Big 12 did kind of win the most recent college football playoff rankings. If you look at the bracket as it stands right now, I mean, you've got Texas Tech in there. BYU did fall out, but there was a good chance that BYU could get back in.
Right. Texas
is right there at 10. I mean, honestly, this could be problematic for the Big 12. Because
Absolutely.
now, how are you going to get BYU back in when you have – and I'm sure he's going to be out of the room for when these meetings happen.
Yes.
But there's got to be some concern here if you are the Big 12, especially if you're BYU. You don't want to get penalized for a road loss against a good Texas Tech team. But that just might be the case because you play in the Big 12, and then all of these conversations about conferences come back up, and it's like, why should I play in the Big 12 if I'm not going to make it?
Right.
If there's only going to be one Big 12 team, one ACC team, why am I even going to make it? And then soon enough, we'll have two conferences, and it'll just be like professional sports.
Yes, it'll be just like the NFC and the AFC. It'll be the Big Ten and the SEC moving on. So this is really interesting because I thought as soon as we got to a committee, this would be a little bit more streamlined, and for the most part, it has. But this is interesting as far as the way that it relates to the different conferences, the way they're represented in that group, and the way that they'll all move forward. There, you saw the bracket there moments ago, and to me, this is an interesting situation because I think if every team, if the teams win out, for example, I don't see Notre Dame losing another football game throughout the course of the regular season here. Georgia and Texas this weekend might be interesting. It'll throw that one for a bit of a loop there. Ole Miss, I see them winning out there as well. The question would be, what do you do with the ACC, and then what do you do with what do you do with the that next at large? I mean, does it go to Notre Dame? Does it go to another?
We're gonna talk about our own brackets here in a little bit, but Now I definitely don't see a world where the Big 12 gets two teams in.
Right, me too.
And honestly, I do think I thought it was far-fetched for a little while. That's why I put it in my overreactions. But now I can see the SEC getting 5 teams in.
Yes.
I actually thought that was far-fetched, but now just the way things have panned out, I could honestly see it happening.
Oh yeah. I could too. And this will be, in my opinion, a really fun thing to follow because of the domino effect and the way that you'll view the losses. Because will we have the first 3-loss SEC team in? We will find out. Will we have the first? Will a Big 12 team with 2 losses be able to sneak in? This is where I think that you'll really see the committee. I think after this week, we'll get a real sense of what the committee really wants to do. Speaking of Baylor, but Baylor was the place where obviously this originated from, with the Baylor AD who was the chair, who did step down. But we'll stick with the Bears for just a little bit. This is a team that came in with one of the top-notch quarterbacks in the game, Sawyer Robertson, and haven't really necessarily filled out expectations going into this year, just over 500.
Yeah, I laugh not because they've been struggling this year, but the storyline almost wrote itself if Harlan was named chair, because they play Utah on Saturday. So, just go right from, your athletic director stepping down to playing the guy that could replace him on the committee chair. But, we've talked about it with Parker Ream on this show. Baylor, it seemed like they put up a great fight against Auburn to start the year. And honestly, that was one of the weaker games Auburn had played on defense up until this past week against Vanderbilt.
Right.
And, for Baylor fans, it feels like they're just waiting and waiting and waiting for the team to be good again. And they really want it to be. Last year, they had a chance at making the Big 12 championship.
Right.
But you needed so many things to go your way. And it was just such a far-fetched opportunity that honestly it was like a 2 or 3% chance that they would have made. They would have had to win out and then hope like someone else would lose. But There was a chance at a 5-way tie for the top in the Big 12 last year. And let me tell you, the SEC would never.
Exactly. Would never. It would be mass chaos in and around it. We got a chance to hear from Dave Aranda coming into this week's matchup against the Utes.
I try to let them know. And, I think this is a game that we need. This is a game that we have to play well in. This is a game that we've got guys that want to play at the next level and want to do all the things. They need this game. And we as a program need this game. So it's an important one.
We've talked about just his overall demeanor plenty of times before. It's a I don't want to, obviously I want to, be nice, but like it just doesn't necessarily sound to me like the prototype college football coach.
No, I mean, it sounds like he's trying to tell me to go to sleep. Like,
exactly.
I'm just going to say it how it is. That's just how Dave Aranda sounds. And obviously there's been a lot of talk about his job security this year. He could be on the hot seat. Who knows if the new athletic director at this point will be like, all right, let's go in a different direction.
That's a good point.
He doesn't sound like he's on the hot seat. He just sounds like, just another game.
Right.
He sounds like that teenager that just got home from school. How was your day? It was all right. It was all right. I learned nothing. I just hung out with my friends all day. Like, that's just what he sounds like.
It does. He does. Absolutely does. He has a chance to give Utah yet another loss on the season. They're 7-2 overall. And you mentioned that logjam that's there within the top within the top few teams. Texas Tech with that one loss. Of course, BYU with the loss last week to the Red Raiders. And then obviously Cincinnati and Houston, as well as Utah, all with 2 losses. Arizona State, Arizona, TCU with 3 losses, and then Baylor on down with 4 or more. I do think that the Big 12 will be a really interesting case study as this conference moves forward, because if you remember at the beginning of the year, they were one of the only conferences that came out and said, we do not want to have a preseason poll because we think that it reshapes the way people think about our teams.
Right.
Thinking about Arizona State from last year, Arizona State was preseason ranked in the bottom of the conference, and of course they ended up representing the Big 12 in the conference champion or in the college football playoff. I do think that there is a sense that we could see a shifting here of the Big 12 and what it looks like overall. I can't project the next 5 years, but not that they're on shaky ground. I just don't know if it will stand this way, because like you said, I think we're headed towards 2 super conferences.
And I go back to this past offseason and specifically the spring meetings.
Yeah.
This past offseason, all the talk was about, hey, I know we have a 12-team playoff right now.
Right.
Wouldn't it be awesome if we had a 16-team
yes,
playoff?
Yes.
And the Big 12 commissioner, Brett Yormark, was like, hey, we're in the Big 12, but I really want a 5+11 model. That means 5 automatic bids and 11 at-large bids.
Yeah.
Do you know how bad that would actually be for the Big 12?
That'd be horrible. Yeah.
And honestly, this is basically the year where I know you said there's just so much going on, and honestly, you were like, yeah, we need to go to a 16-team playoff, but this is also at the same time why we don't need to go, because who knows who's actually good. I mean, you can't tell me that the teams that are right behind Oklahoma are really going to compete for anything. I mean, maybe Utah, maybe BYU.
Maybe.
I mean, BYU did not look great at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like you're not going to get these at-large bids over SEC and Big Ten teams with stronger resumes.
Yeah, you won't. And it will almost be unfair to ask those teams to play at that same level. So, and I mentioned yesterday in our overreactions.
I mean, you would have to schedule SEC teams before conference play starts.
Right.
Like that's the only way you can do it. And you got to hope, hey, this is basically our Super Bowl right here. If we win this, we're going to have a great resume and we could get an at-large bid.
Yeah.
Like that's honestly where we might see this headed towards in the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Only time will tell how far all this goes down. But as of right now, there is a new chair for the College Football Playoff Committee coming out of the SEC. We'll see how it impacts the upcoming college football playoff bracket. Coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to Oklahoma City. And we will check in with Holden Kruzmark just before a huge game for the Sooners as they head to Tuscaloosa. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, this Thursday rolls on as we head over to OKC. Let's go to Oklahoma City and check in with Holden Kruzmark. First off, Holden, will your basketball, I know the Thunder have one loss, but is it almost boring watching that basketball team just win and win and win? They just dismantle the Warriors.
Yeah, but then they decided to break out some Harlem Globetrotter Showtime Lakers stuff in the second half. So that made it pretty interesting to watch, even though, they were dominating. I mean, Shea goes behind the back, Jay Will goes no look to Case and Wallace slam. They're keeping us entertained here in Oklahoma City, that's for sure.
No question. And they're doing this without Jay, though, which has been unbelievable. There's no question, like when the second best player on this team ends up coming back. But we want to talk to you primarily about this monster football game coming up this weekend as Oklahoma makes the trip to Alabama. We talked about this previously from last year's game, last year's perspective. And really, the Sooners put the nail in the coffin for Alabama's bid to go to the college football playoff 24-3. Both teams completely different this year. What's the mindset this year for Oklahoma as they head into Tuscaloosa this weekend?
Yeah, I think everybody would trade what happened last year for it to happen this year.
Yeah.
It was like, it was essentially pretty meaningless for OU. I mean, it hurt Alabama, but it was kind of meaningless for OU other than, I guess, it got them to bowl eligibility. But woohoo, you got to go to the Armed Forces Bowl and play and lose to Navy. So, but no, I still don't really know how they managed to pull that off last year, just based on the way they played, because, then they go and follow that up by looking miserable against LSU in the season finale. Mm-hmm. So that was just such a head scratcher to me, and they're going to hope that they have to hope that they can reclaim. They just have some sort of magic spell over Alabama right now where, they just can't. Whatever it is, if it's Venables, if over DeBoer, or, whatever it is, they got to hope that whatever happened last year can happen again this year, because the defense, was dominant. And, Ty Simpson's a better passer than Jalen Milroe, but, they made Jalen Milroe's life hell in that game last year. Yeah. And so they got to hope that they can do that again this year. And, I think obviously one of the keys for the Bama offense, the OU defense, is the run game, as we've talked about.
Yep.
Why do teams run the ball against OU? I don't know. But Kalen DeBoer, if you're watching this right now, because, why wouldn't you be watching at 3:20 in the afternoon, 2 days before you
48
play
hours away from
game,
kickoff.
Whatever. Don't run the ball. Abandon the run game. Just abandon it. Just throw the ball. See what happens. You're going to have more success.
I tell you what, if Alabama hasn't done one thing right on offense this year, it's running the ball. Maybe they just won't as is.
So,
abandon the run game. Abandon it. Just don't even try.
Meanwhile, in the passing game as well, though, we talked a lot about, we saw it on display when Auburn played Oklahoma. It was 9 sacks, 10 sacks. I don't know what the official record book says, but this is a team that can get after the quarterback. What do you think the mindset is for this defense as they go into this one against Alabama and a team with a lot of different weapons on the outside, guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, and in other words, so we'll get to the offensive side for a second, but what do you think specifically for the defense will be the key this week?
Yeah, well, Gentry Williams is no longer on the injury report this week right now. So that's huge for the OU defense. As we've talked about, their secondary has struggled, against good passers. And having Gentry back will be a huge factor, whether he can make it through the entire game or not, because he's been someone that has struggled to stay on the field. But when he is on the field, he's one of their best cover cornerbacks, and he makes a serious impact on this defense. So they're going to need him to be able to. One thing that, maybe isn't going in their favor is the fact that Mason Thomas and Jaden Jackson are both questionable on that defensive line. Now, if there's one area this OU defense is stacked enough at that they could miss a couple guys and be fine, is the defensive line. But we have seen the impact that Mason Thomas has had. I mean, Lane Kiffin called him one of the, best players in the country after the game, especially on defense. And, the impact that he can make on the edges has just been vital to OU's attack, especially with, the secondary not, being able to cover super well. The pass rush and getting to the quarterback is how they've made, life difficult on opposing quarterbacks. It's not necessarily what they're doing on the back end. It's what they're doing on the front end and being able to get to the quarterback. And, obviously Mason made that heroic play against Tennessee, and it may cost him a little bit because he may not be able to go against Alabama here this Saturday.
Absolutely.
Holden, when I watch the Alabama defense, I feel like over the last few years, the one kryptonite for them have been mobile quarterbacks. What have you seen from John Mateer as of late? I know when he came back from injury, it didn't seem like he wanted to run it as much, but I think that could be a major impact on the game here this weekend. How did he look running? I know it was 2 weeks ago against Tennessee, and do you think he can run and have a good game on the ground?
Yeah, and John Mateer had been the biggest question mark on this team, since he came back from his injury, because he just didn't look the same. And it's a thumb injury, so you would, expect it to be, hampering his throwing ability. But it also seemed like it really played an impact on his ability to run the ball. He just didn't see, I don't know if it was maybe he wasn't quite as decisive or he was worried about taking hits to that thumb, but he just seemed slower out there in the run game. And you kind of wondered maybe they're going to, dial back the quarterback run game or anything like that. And instead they just, doubled down on it against Tennessee, and he looked really good running the ball again, or at least a lot better than he had been. And so that was one of the things in that Michigan win early in the season, where Mateer carried the ball a ton in that game. Then it happened again against Tennessee. So if you're a betting man, as I know some of us are here on the show,
yes,
I think I would take the over on John Mateer 15 rushing attempts in this game. But who knows? I mean, maybe now that they think that Alabama probably knows it's coming, maybe they'll change it up. But I would think that John Mateer's probably gonna have his fair share of carries in this one, and hopefully Xavier Robinson gets the lion's share of the carries, because as you guys know, I've been pounding the table for more Xavier Robinson, and we're finally getting some of that. So
yeah. They're finally utilizing his legs, and I might have to find a nice number to tease that down. 15 sounds like a lot of rushing attempts for John Mateer. I'll see if I can.
Yeah,
I'll see if I can find a way to tease it.
but he had near 20
That's
against
true.
both Michigan and Tennessee.
Very
So
true.
I know that's a large number, but it kind of has been in line because there's obviously designed quarterback runs,
Correct.
and then just times when he has to make something out of it, and of course they consider sacks as a rush.
Right.
So
right.
So just all of those things factored in, I think he could probably will go over that 15 mark, but we'll see what happens.
I've never not thought about a bet at all, and then being convinced to bet until the handicap right there.
Well, I tell you what, if it does hit, and honestly, I might take it on underdog. I'm pretty sure underdog has it.
Yeah, we'll find out. I'm definitely finding out during the commercial break.
15 is my arbitrary number. I have no idea what the actual number is, but that's my personal line I'm setting it at, and I'm taking the over on it. So.
Absolutely. Speaking of quarterbacks, Ty Simpson and that Tide offense inside the red zone has been a key for this football team. Before we get your thoughts on it, let's hear from head coach Brent Venables on the way that his defense will attack.
Yeah, they just they're very efficient. They, again, stay out of the negative plays there. They've got a lot of excellent play design concepts when they get down into the red zone, and they understand defense and how defense works. That's when I watch them, that's what I see. And so they try to put you in conflict and attack your rules and things of that nature. So they're really smart that way. Understanding what you do. They've run the ball in that area really well. They got good players. But again, at 92%, conversion rate, that's really, really high and efficient. So I think they're comfortable in that space. It looks like they spend a lot of time there.
Coach Venables is talking literally about, when they get inside that 20-yard line, the defense being able to step up. What parts of the game, whether it be special teams, whether it be red zone execution on offense, on defense, if you were to point to an X factor from a scheme standpoint, what would you point to as a chance and success ways for Oklahoma to be able to pull out a win?
I think they got to be able to find ways to get off the field on 3rd and long.
Mm-hmm.
That's been kind of a thing that I've noticed is like the OU defense has almost been better when it's a 3rd and short than when it's 3rd and long. And maybe because it's, as we kind of go back to this whole thing of, the defense hasn't been great about stopping the pass and teams are more likely to throw the ball on 3rd and long. That's kind of been an area where they've struggled. They've been able to get defenses, or, their defense has been able to get offenses in 3rd and longs, and it seems like too often teams are converting on these 3rd and longs to keep drives alive, and you can't let that happen. Obviously, I mean that's pretty easy thing. You got to be able to get off the field, especially when it's 3rd and long, and they just haven't been able to do that with much consistency this year, and it's kind of been an odd thing because. Considering the pass rush that they do have, that 3rd and long, you get your pass rushers in there, but they, for whatever reason, just haven't had much success on these 3rd and longs. Ole Miss really carved them up on 3rd and longs, and, even Tennessee got a few of them. And it, of course, it fuels my point of why would you even run the ball against OU? Because, you run the ball and you get in these 3rd and longs, and then you get, a 20-yard completion or whatever the thing may be. And you're like, well, why haven't you just been doing this the whole time? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that these guys get paid millions of dollars and I get paid thousands of dollars. But,
I tell you what, hold
at some point we gotta figure this out here, guys.
If Ryan Grubb calls up 50 pass plays this next game and Ty Simpson has 400 pass yards, I'm going to empower you to put your resume in, and I'm going to clip this for you to send out to a bunch of coaches, just scouting against your own team. I mean, this is just great.
I do love it. Big picture talking. Oklahoma and Tennessee was a de facto elimination game. Oklahoma wins that. Playoff hope still alive. Now that said, with the latest college football playoff ranking out, do you think where they fell is a fair assessment for this football team as they continue to try to make a push there to be in that top 12 to end the season?
Yeah, and personally, I'm always a fan of your team getting a little underranked. I think that, maybe while it doesn't provide that much motivation, it gives you a little bit more of a juice that, like, hey, They think we're only, the 12th best team or whatever. This time of year, I'd rather be underranked than overranked.
Right.
And I think the Sooners are sitting in a good spot when it comes to being in the playoff. Obviously, they've, kind of consistently ranked Texas ahead of OU due to the head-to-head matchup and everything like that. But I think they're in a good position. I mean, right now they're the first team out. And if we've seen anything from the season is that, there's a lot of parity and teams can be beat pretty much any week.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're in a good spot. If you take care of business, you're gonna be in.
Right.
If you lose this week, I still think there's a pathway just because of some of the chaos we've already seen this season, that they could still make it in. But yeah, I think they're sitting in a good spot. The one of the things that I thought was interesting is that I was seeing on one of the ESPN shows the other day is they were saying that if OU wins, Alabama still has a higher % chance to make the playoff than OU.
Right.
And I was like, that seems like interesting. I mean, they'd have the same record.
Yeah, same number of losses, and Oklahoma would have went on the field.
And OU would have beat them.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't understand how you would sit there and say that, but maybe it's because Alabama would still have the chance to go to the SEC championship and possibly win that since they would only have the one conference loss.
Right.
And OU has two,
right.
but
take into consideration that they won 4 straight ranked games.
Right, it might just be like a overall resume thing more so than anything else. But no, you're right, because if you're literally just looking at records and who won the game between the two, it should be OU ahead of Bama.
Well,
yeah.
And Florida State's looking like a way worse loss than anything OU's got on their resume, which is losing to Texas and Ole Miss.
That's a good point, because that loss has gone through the gauntlet. At the beginning of the season, it looked like the worst loss ever because it was terrible, and then they scored 77 points against some team that we don't know, and it was like, oh, that's not a bad loss at all. And like you said, as we sit now here in November, it once again looks like a bad loss like it did a little bit earlier. Let's flip to basketball just really quickly here. Not in the NBA, but in college basketball, the Sooners picking up a really nice win over Pine Bluff. What do you make of this Sooner basketball team as they continue to make a push here in the non-conference part of the season, especially now scoring 95 in that big matchup there? And what do you make so far of what you've seen from this Sooner basketball squad?
Yeah, it's been a little up and down. Their first game, they kind of really got tested by St. Francis a little. The box score didn't really, suggest it, but St. Francis had a lead early in the second half, and OU was able to kind of pull away. You thought maybe, okay, it's a bunch of newcomers. They got a lot of transfers, a couple younger players being involved in the rotation right now that, maybe it just taking a little time. But they beat Wisconsin in their exhibition. I thought that was a pretty good win. Yeah. And then it was super disappointing, their effort against Gonzaga. And part of that, Mo Wiggy, their big man who, transferred in from Alabama before last year, he obviously is going to be a key for them because he got into early foul trouble and they just were not the same. They couldn't stop Gonzaga down low and on the glass, and that was, a huge problem for them. I don't want to say that I expect this team to be amazing this year, but I think it could be Porter Moser's best team. At least that's what my preseason expectations have kind of been, or my thoughts. And so I was really disappointed by their effort in that Gonzaga game. They just looked like a team that didn't know how to play together at all. They just kind of really, they only had, I think, 5 assists in that game, which is pretty pathetic. And it just shows that, they got backed into the corner a little bit. Gonzaga got hot. They went on a run, and they just kind of resorted to hero ball, where it was just, okay, I'm just going to try and take over this game and win it. And then that just didn't happen at all. So it was good to see them, play some better team ball against Arkansas Pine Bluff. Tay Davis was kind of, is expected to be one of the best players on this team, and he was kind of a non-factor against the Bulldogs, and he comes back and he has 15 rebounds against Arkansas Pine Bluff, 11 offensive rebounds. So that's a good sign. If they've got some talent, they've got some good talent here. The thing is, how are they going to mesh together? And through their exhibition games, the first game, I was feeling pretty good about that. Gonzaga, I was like, wow, they just don't know how to play together at all.
Right.
So if they can get that figured out, and that's what non-conference is for, then I think they'll be able to be a middle of the pack challenger in the SEC, maybe make a 7 seed in the tournament, something like that.
Right.
And I think that's a really good year for them.
Exactly. And you said this is what the beginning of the season is for, and Coach Moser agrees with you. He talked about his team being able to get that experience early on in the season.
Just got to keep getting better. Get better. I mean, we got some guys some minutes tonight. Kowal played 14, Kai played 10.5. And then everybody else played over 20. Only one guy two guys. Tay was at 30 and X was at 32. But, Kai had 10.5 minutes. I'm just telling you, just got to keep logging experience. Keep getting comfortable. Keep getting situations. Like that one we learned right there. He was trying to do the right thing. We were hard hedging some ball screens. But when it's almost at half court, the call is to read it and tell him to go under. You don't want to hard hedge at half court. And so I brought him in, and then we fouled, and I brought him over, and I'm like, where was that ball? And he goes, yeah, it was too far out. So you just stuff like that to learn. And the pace of the game, the first stint he went in, I think he was just thinking where he was going. And we told him the second time, I go, speed to screen, roll hard, just do some things like with aggression. And that play I was just talking about that Dayton went downhill, it was a flip screen, and Kai sprinted up, flipped it, rolled hard, drew a guy in, and Dayton kicked it to Jeff. So just that speed and motor of learning that, that's not in the box score, but he did that really well on that play. Just getting him more minutes. We just need him.
So obviously Coach Moser wants to use the early part of the season here as his team moves forward. They obviously play Nebraska coming up this weekend. And then the next Power 4 team looks like it's Arizona State in mid-December. So a chance here to get some wins on the board at least. It looks like they'll be favored in most of these basketball games as they move forward. Do you expect from here for the next month or so, it's just, hey, let's post up some W's because the competition is not necessarily that great for the next month or so?
Well, I think they do have good competition. I mean, Nebraska should be a solid team. They've got Marquette, Wake Forest in the SEC ACC Challenge, and you get Oklahoma State, the Bedlam rivalry, also in early December, mid-December. So I think you've got a good non-conference schedule. There's some good matchups that'll kind of really test you, and that's actually been the area that Porter Moser's teams have thrived in, is the non-conference. It seems like pretty much every year they've been, really good in the non-conference, get ranked, wherever, and then, conference play, whether it's, the SEC or the Big 12, whatever it was, they would kind of fade in conference play for whatever reason. And so kind of looking the way they did against Gonzaga was a little bit concerning, because I'm like, well, hey, this is, normally when they're good and they build their, resume, they have their resume building wins in the non-conference. So but maybe we're trending in the opposite direction here. Maybe they'll be really good in SEC play, and not quite as good in the non-conference. But yeah, I don't know. They've got some good challenges ahead. It's not anything too crazy, but these are going to be good wins, when they look at the resume down the stretch. If you're able to beat Nebraska, Marquette, Wake Forest, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, those are good wins to stack up if they're able to get them. And, I think they will only continue to get better, because they really only have two guys that played any sort of significant minutes for the team last year, and that was Muhammad Wagee and Dayton Forsyth. Cool Attack didn't play at all last year. He redshirted for them. Jeff Wonkwo and Jaden Jones all both missed last year with injury. And Wonkwo's been, a pretty solid player for them off the bench so far this year. I don't think we've seen Jaden Jones yet. I don't know if he's hurt still or whatever exactly it
Another
is.
Jaden that we haven't seen.
But they've got some good pieces, and I think they'll just keep getting better, and we'll see. They'll find their way, and we'll see. I think probably the ceiling for this team is like a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, and probably more in that like 6 to 7 range, and we'll see. But I definitely expect them to be better in conference play than last year, because I think, what was it, they went like 6-12 in conference play and still somehow made the tournament, which is pretty remarkable. Give it, considering that horrid conference record. So I think they'll probably be around 500 in SEC play, and we'll see. But I've been wrong before, so that's. I'm not going to guarantee anything here.
No, I get it. But it's an interesting part of the year, interesting part of the season for them to get right, and we'll see if they're able to do so over the next month or so. Holden, thank you so much for your time here on Southeast Sports Plus.
See you guys.
Absolutely. Cruz Mark breaking down both the Alabama-Oklahoma football game as well as his Bama basketball team, or Oklahoma basketball team there as well. And I think he makes a good point, though, and I think you helped him bring it up. Bama, don't try to run the football against this team. And, if we get a Bama high-scoring offense, we could see a really interesting matchup here between these two squads.
I know he said take the over on 15 John Mateer rush attempts.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the over on 35 passing attempts for Ty Simpson. I might even up it to 40 passing attempts.
Okay, nice.
I'm going to clip it. I'm going to send it to Kalen DeBoer and be like, hey, here's what you need to do. Just hear from the Oklahoma City.
I love it. We'll see if all those hit. But like I said, I've never been more convinced based on one handicap in about 20 seconds to make a bet that I probably will do here during the break. Stay with us here on Southeast Sports Plus. We continue with our number. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus. It is a Thursday, so of course we have the first game of the next week of the NFL season. They haven't been the most necessarily entertaining football games. Just point to last week, Broncos Raiders was just a snooze fest. a potential snooze fest here. However, if you have rooting interests like myself, then you love it. New England Patriots will take on the New York Jets. It's another division matchup, so the NFL likes these division matchups. However, 4 days away from the game the previous day, you don't necessarily get the best football, but a lot of former SEC players will be on the field this year. These are two teams going obviously in opposite directions. The New York Jets, right before the trade deadline, they had a fire sale.
I mean, you could make the argument that maybe the Jets have found something here the last two games. They started 0-7.
They started,
and then they rattled off 2 straight wins.
Yep.
So maybe, the Patriots didn't get off to the best start, and then they're looking for, I believe, their eighth straight.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That guy's been at the center of it.
Yep. Drake May, the second-year quarterback out of North Carolina, obviously having a really strong season and putting himself right in the middle of the Heisman Trophy. Wow, the MVP for the NFL, more than 2,500 yards through the air, 19 touchdowns. He's taking care of the football every game outside of the Steelers game, and it's been a really interesting year here for this team with a new head coach, like you said, the second-year quarterback for this squad. What are some of the things that you are looking for as another week in the NFL kicks off? And you have, like you said, two teams that have found something overall. I know the Jets went through a fire sale, so they don't have a lot of their main players like they did 3 weeks ago. But what do you make here of this matchup?
Well, I think when I look at this matchup and what the Jets have been able to do over the last 2 games and during their 2-game winning streak is run the ball well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an immovable force meeting an immovable object,
Right.
and the best thing the Patriots do is run defense. They're the top in the league at defending the run. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a telltale sign of how the game's probably going to go tonight. But as you mentioned, these division matchups on Thursday Night Football don't really go over well. We just saw that last week. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Broncos struggled with the Raiders and arguably giving us one of the worst football games to watch ever.
It was an awful game. Awful game. Like 10-7 was the final score.
And then almost got eclipsed by the one on Monday.
Yes, exactly. Right. That was awful. That was awful as well. And I get what the NFL likes to do. Likes to put these divisional matchups on there. Mm-hmm. But what ends up happening is that those teams are so familiar with one another that they know each other so well. So it's hard to get by with anything. And so you have a game where the total is really low. Mm-hmm. But also the point spread is really high, so they're expecting a blowout kind of game. New England's a favorite by close to 2 touchdowns. The over/under is less than 50. So I mean they're calling for kind of a blowout game here. I think I see it. The game is in New England. There's obviously a lot of hype because Rob Gronkowski came back and signed that
signed that one-day contract
to finish off there as a New England Patriot. But I think that the juice will be there in the stadium. I just don't know if the game will bring the same juice.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I wish we could just ban I know there's a lot of people that want to ban the Thursday Night Football in general.
Correct, right.
Just ban division rivals just playing against each other. Like, honestly, I mean, you want the division rivalries to be good. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when you're playing, let's just say, for example, in this situation, it's the Jets. You just played on Sunday.
Right.
And now you got to come back on Thursday and play a division team. Like, that's just not right.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly. Do these, like, interleague games almost, like AFC versus NFC. Like that, just make it more interesting that way.
That would be, in my opinion,
because they don't mean anything.
More fun. Right. And you can actually just use those kind of as your reprieve, try to pick up a win there against another team probably outside the conference and get it that way. Lots of former SEC standouts here for both these squads. We got a chance to talk to one of them, and Joshua Dobbs, who joined us, former Tennessee quarterback there. Ramondre Stevenson, been banged up a little, former Oklahoma guy.
Just came out today. He is out.
Yeah, he is out for the game. So Trayvon Henderson did a good job out of Ohio State, the rookie from last year. Hunter Henry coming out of Arkansas. Ben Brown from Ole Miss. Marcus Bryant there from Missouri. Will Campbell, the first-round draft pick last year from LSU. Christian Barmore from Bama. Eric Gregory from Arkansas. And Clavon Chasen from LSU there as well. Anthony Jennings, former Alabama star. Carlton Davis won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Used to play for the Auburn Tigers. John Saunders from Ole Miss and Brandon Schooler from Texas. In the same situation there for the Giants as well.
Yeah, I mean, good crew there. Will Campbell. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, he is.
we'll talk about the Jets here in a minute, but maybe the Jets should take some notes on maybe build up the O-line for these quarterbacks. I mean, Drake May has had an unbelievable year. You could make the argument, all right, is it Drake May's development? Is it Mike Vrabel? Is it the offensive line finally doing something? I mean, you can't just throw these hopeful, good quarterbacks into systems where they're not going to get any blocking because – I mean, we're seeing it with Cam Ward right now.
Yep, that's exactly right. And when you see it with young quarterbacks, you really need two things to kind of go their way. You need a running game, but you also need the offensive line. Right. For the longest time, the New England Patriots, during their dynasty, had Dante Scarnecchia, who was the offensive line coach, probably one of the greatest O-line coaches in the history of professional, I would say, in the history of football altogether. That was the centerpiece. The O-line was the centerpiece to help protect Brady, and then now protecting Drake May. So I'm in 100% agreement with you.
Yeah, so let's move over to the Jets now. I mean, it's been a year to forget for Justin Fields.
Yeah, exactly.
He lost the starting job to Russell Wilson late in the towards the midway point of the year last year. And I honestly thought Justin Fields was doing well under Mike Tomlin, but when you make the splash to get Russell Wilson to come over, trying to just find a spark there, it was tough for him in Denver. It didn't go the way he wanted to. Now went over to Pittsburgh, it didn't work out again, and now over in New York, and he got benched for Jameis Winston now, and now he's quarterback 3.
Right.
Same way for Justin Fields, but he's been able to find the run game a little bit here. The passing numbers, I think they're some of the worst in the league, but he's always been a dual threat quarterback, and you go back to his good days in Chicago, they weren't amazing, but he was always a great fantasy quarterback because his running numbers were so good. I think he had an 1,100-yard rushing year in 2022.
Right. And the big thing, I think, for him is being able to not play from behind, not only behind the chains physically, but also play from behind on the scoreboard as well. Right. He talked about being able to get out to those fast starts, especially against the elite teams in the league.
Starting fast and just creating more explosives on early. We always preach and start fast and, finish strong. Like I said, after the game on Sunday, I felt like we finished strong, but I think we got to do a better job with, starting fast. And, we never want field goals in the red zone. So, also, taking advantage of that and scoring touchdowns in the red zone.
Lots of former guys that were from the SEC also on this football team as well, and that includes him. He played for a little bit there at Georgia, but then also you see some of the other ones as well, Andrew Beck, John Mechie, Adonai Mitchell, Arian Smith, Mason Taylor, and then you have Armar Menbu, Michael Clemens, Jamian Sherwood, Jamarcus Weston, and Malachi Moore, former Alabama star there as well for the football team. So it should be maybe interesting game, depending on who you root for. Hopefully, for me, rooting for the Patriots.
And it is that time for Best Bets.
Best Bets,
with G&P.
I'll
go ahead and start us off here. We're going to say him today.
Yes.
Jets cover plus 13. We talked about these rivalry matchups in division on Thursdays. They're low scoring.
Right.
I think 13 is an absurd number, even though it's the Jets.
Yeah.
I mean, the Patriots just played a hard game against New England. I just don't see it happening. However, for the Patriots, I do see Travion Henderson scoring a touchdown. That's at minus 160. And then back to the Jets. Breece Hall under 55.5 rush yards because the Patriots defense is number 1 in the league.
I like it. I'm going under for the game overall. 43.5 is the number right now. I like the Patriots being able to score 25, 28 points, and then that be the cap for them. Also like Drake May over 235 yards in the game. So I think they moved the ball, but I think they set up for some field goals there. And then I like Justin Fields to throw at least 2 interceptions.
Oh, he's going back to it.
This game.
He's going back to
it.
Tried to do it with Geno last week. It didn't work, and now he's going back to it.
I got to go back to it. All right, coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus, we will close out shop here on a Thursday. Look at the brackets here. That and more next. right, back here on Southeast Sports Plus before we completely close up shop here on a Thursday. What we will start doing from here on out, we'll start unveiling our brackets as we move forward here. Got the template to get these brackets up, and the committee will have their bracket. They'll have their ranking and have their bracket. We'll also have our ranking and our bracket. And for those that don't know, we'll still keep in line with what the committee says as far as what they will do. Correct? Right.
And these are just hypothetical. Well, my bracket is a hypothetical, what I think the season is going to pan out to, not quite based on what the rankings are right now.
Correct.
This is what I think is going to happen at the end of the season.
So this is this is future projections.
Future projections.
Bracket.
We'll get to yours tomorrow.
Yep.
We had a lot of great guests today that we went over with, but that's awesome because we love all of our guests. But today we'll go ahead and I'll start it up here. This is my Week 12 college football playoff prediction. I think that Notre Dame is going to be facing off against Texas Tech to start the college football playoff. Notre Dame, the 8 seed, Texas Tech, the 9 seed. I like Notre Dame to finish out the season strong, and I see a scenario where there's chaos that goes on in front of them. Texas Tech, I think they lose the Big 12 championship, but as we've seen with the actually no, I see Texas Tech winning the Big 12 championship. No, I'm contradicting myself.
Wait, so you're saying it's Texas Tech being
Texas Tech loses the Big 12 championship. Right. They get in as a 9 seed.
As the 9 seed and at large. Yeah, I got you.
USF. 12 seed.
Okay, so that's the G5 representative?
That's the G5. They play Ole Miss. You want to know why? Because Texas beats Georgia this next weekend.
Ooh, okay.
And Texas faces off against Georgia again.
Okay. All right.
First round.
All right.
And then
a rematch.
Virginia is going to be the ACC team facing off against Oregon because Oregon moves up because of the turmoil that goes on above them. Then Indiana gets the number 1 seed. You want to know why? Ohio State drops down to 4 because Ohio State still can't beat Michigan.
Wow.
That is my projection. That game is in Ann Arbor. Bryce Underwood will almost have a full season under his belt. But it's not going to be enough to get Michigan into the playoff. And now that I'm just thinking of it, Texas Tech has to win because that's got to be the Big 12 champion.
The Big 12 champion.
My bracket's not even right, but that's okay. Texas A&M moves up to 2, and Alabama moves to 3. So other than the Texas Tech blunder, what do you think of the bracket?
I like it. And I see where you were going with it as well because you kind of have to do some mental gymnastics with the Big 12. And really some mental gymnastics really with Big 12, G5, and how they relate to the other at-large bids.
Here's where it would make more sense. Just forget Texas Tech's even on there. And then just put BYU in their place.
Okay.
Maybe you could see a BYU Texas Tech rematch, and then BYU wins on it.
Right. And if BYU wins it, then and I mean, who's to say Texas Tech doesn't lose, or another one and drop them out, and then BYU slides up in there. I find it really interesting though that you still have Ohio State as the number 4, even if they lose to Michigan. So they lose to Michigan, and then do you think that if they win or lose the Big 12, the Big 10 championship, or maybe they win the Big 10 championship, that's what keeps them in that top 4 to be able to get that bye?
Yeah, I was thinking about it because I do have Ole Miss at 5, but I just think that the Ohio State resume and taking into account that they're the reigning national champions and just what they've been able to do, I mean, their best win will be over Texas, who is a number 10 seed in my bracket here. I just don't see Ole Miss leapfrogging because Ole Miss hasn't beaten anybody on this list.
Right. So fans of the SEC will have one question for you.
Yes.
So it will be about the Texas A&M Alabama. Of course, if things were to pan out the way it is right now, those two teams will meet in the SEC championship. So do you think no matter what happens between those two teams, they still fall with those first round byes?
Yes, especially if Texas A&M loses. If they head into the national championship, well, I mean, even if they finish 13-0, they're definitely the 2 seed.
Right.
And Alabama, you can't really punish them for a loss to Texas A&M because you look at the resume around it and it's just so much better.
Right.
I still think Alabama's resume is better than Ohio State's, but Ole Miss's is not better than Ohio State's. That's my logic behind that.
I see that. No, I see that. And you might have a situation where you end up having the rematch of the SEC championship game later on in the college
football
playoff.
I like the most, though, is Texas at Georgia. I can totally see that happening.
Texas, Georgia, yes.
And it's just a rematch.
It's a rematch of that game. And another, insanely, it would be another rematch in another situation where it's another home site.
And that would be the fourth time Texas, or actually, that'd be the fifth time that Texas plays Georgia. And they've been in the SEC for a minute, and Texas A&M has been in and has played them once.
Exactly. It makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. That's the end of our show today. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you here tomorrow.